Hi everyone, I'm Dan. I'm a recruitment lead at Insight. Today I'm speaking with Nicholas Rohani, who is the CEO and founder of Vula. So thanks for joining us, Nick.
Pleasure.
Brilliant. Glad to have you. Would you like to start off by giving a little bit more insight into who Vula are and what it is that you're aiming to accomplish?
For sure. So Vula is a tech company based in London, but our entire focus is on closing the SME and startup funding gap in Africa. Basically, we want to 10x the amount of investment that's going onto the African continent using tech and automation solutions for both entrepreneurs and financial institutions.
Brilliant. So a very, very kind of powerful mission that you've got there. What was it that led you to starting up Vula in the first place?
Well, I was born and raised in South Africa, in Johannesburg, and a lot of the work that I did and my focus in my academic and private life, a lot has to do with basically community empowerment and especially empowering young people. So during my whole high school career, I was involved in a lot of Baha'i community development activities, working with youth across South Africa in townships, really asking what's next for my life and how do I become an active agent of positive change in my community. And a huge part of that has to do with entrepreneurship. And in a wider African context, entrepreneurship is something that we live. You know, we're always on the hustle, we're always making it happen. But at the same time, you reach these barriers as an entrepreneur in Africa that has a lot to do with the limitations of finance to scale up businesses. Whereas in the US or in Europe, it's a lot easier to, go to your bank to potentially get a loan or to find an investor in terms of family and friends who will help your business take it to the next level. We really have a vacuum of that in an African context. And so my mission has been very much from the beginning of my academic career to learn about what these gaps are and how we can bridge them, and especially where technology can help to make that much easier for both entrepreneurs and the financiers who are trying to engage with them.
Are you finding, are there many other companies trying to fill that gap in addition to Vula, or, what's the situation there?
Yeah, so I mean, we're super collaborative, and the ecosystem is buzzing all the time. The African ecosystem we're just starting out in terms of our investment, venture capital, startup business, and SME ecosystems. So there are a lot of different players who are trying to fill in these gaps in their own unique ways, and a lot of businesses in the past that have tried to solve this problem. But we think that what makes this time really special is both where the funding ecosystem is at in Africa. It's really burgeoning, and the past 5 years have really shown exciting trends towards there being more investment focus, but also a little bit of maturity. In the past, there's been some naivety about how you go and engage in the African continent and how easy it will be. I think that we've learned a lot of lessons from that as African entrepreneurs and as financiers, and we're starting to recognize that some of the structures of financing and scaling businesses, some of the challenges like getting access to really high quality talent, for instance, really are problems that need to be addressed ecosystem wide, and that we need our own unique solutions for. So, maybe the Silicon Valley VC model or the, classic accelerator model won't work if it's just copied and pasted into an African context. But if we learn those lessons and then use them to really generate our own original solutions, the possibilities are endless.
And I know that it is relatively early days for yourself and for Vula. I believe it was only last year that the company was formed. Yeah. But what's the journey, the experience been like for you so far then, in terms of like challenges, milestones that have been hit?
Yeah, so I mean, one of the big things was, before I started Vula, I was at McKinsey, and one of the projects that I was focused on was really this question of examining what are the barriers for investment for larger scale African companies that are owned and operated, and that kind of led to me really realizing that there's a huge opportunity, and that's why I left McKinsey to start Vula. But as you mentioned, it is very early days. We're a year old as of 3 weeks ago, and I'd say the classic issues that face founders. I'm a first-time founder. My co-founder, thankfully, has has started a couple of ventures before. But as a first-time founder, I find myself continuously asking these really tough questions, right? Like, is what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis really adding value? Have some of the conversations that I've had, were those people really interested, or were they just being like kind to me and nice to me? But I also found that early on, we were lucky enough to be selected for Entrepreneur First's Venture Accelerator. And having kind of a community of peers that I can share some of these difficulties with and some of my doubts, you know, like being an entrepreneur in the early days is all about so much self-doubt and the highs and lows. You know, within a 3-hour period, you'll think, yes, this is going to be the biggest company in the world. I've changed everything. And then like 3 hours later, you'll be like, oh,
we're going to fail.
Yeah, exactly. We're not even going to make it to tomorrow. So I think for us, having an ecosystem and a community of peers to be able to share that with, and to realize, oh man, I'm not crazy. It's not just me. Like the 4 people that I've seen on Twitter whose companies have taken off within 2 weeks and become multi-million companies. Okay, I don't need to compare myself to them all the time, because every company has its own journey. Every problem has its own unique set of solutions. And I think patience doesn't just mean like waiting for things, but rather patience means knowing the exact right amount of time that something takes. And so I think that early stage startupping requires a humongous amount of patience. Patience with your company, patience with the market, but also patience with yourself as a person. The best founders are always the ones who can learn and take that feedback. So I think one of our victories early on was just deciding, look, we're not having any ego in this. We're going to talk to experts. We know what our vision is, but we're not going to kind of tie ourselves to any negative feedback. And so, you know, you need to get a bunch of people going, oh, this is crap, this is never going to work. You know, the way you've built this tool, it broke, et cetera, and just slog through that. In order to actually get to where we're at now, which is, you know, thankfully a beautiful amount of momentum and really looking like we're going to get to somewhere with the solution. The other thing I wanted to say that I've learned in this experience so far that feels really counterintuitive is this concept of running for the spike. It's something that I learned at Entrepreneur First, which is, as a founder, sometimes when you come up with an idea, whether it's a strategy for how your company is going to grow, whether it's your approach to hiring new talent, whether it's literally the product that you're going to build, sometimes there are these doubts that come up at the back of your mind. And what feels intuitive is to ignore those, to like brush them over, to bury them, and to say, we'll worry about that when we get to it. And for some of those problems, you have to only, you know, reach that bridge when you get to it. But for some of them, you're able to run for that problem now and basically face your fears head on. Run for the spike that will kill you. Because your goal, especially at the earliest stages, is to try and kill an idea. It's like, how can I kill this idea that I believe in, that I love, but I need to run for this spike? Have we got a competitor that would take us out of the market? Is the technology that we hope exists, does it actually exist? Sometimes you can blind yourself to that, come back to it 3 months later after you've spent a bunch of time and money on it, when you could have actually gotten that no then and there. And so like run for the spike immediately, because if you truly believe in the problem you're trying to solve, you'll find a way. You know, fall in love with the problem, don't fall in love with the solution.
It sounds quite similar to what a lot of people would probably know as kind of failing early. Taking on that challenge first, and if it fails, then at least you know, kind of earlier type thing.
But also, sorry, on that, it's like, yes, fail early, but like you have to also earn the no. Sometimes people are so in a rush to fail early that they'll dismiss it. They'll say, oh, look, there's already a competitor, I'm not going to do anything. But on the other side of that balance is the concept of earning your no. You have to prove that it's a no. You have to prove that you've run into a spike. You have to prove that competitor who already exists on the market actually is addressing the customer's needs in a way that you were planning to. Because it doesn't matter what their website says about how successful they are or how many thousands of customers they have that are very happy. You need to talk to the customers to really find out, because a lot of the time you'll be shocked to know that there are huge gaps in every market that you can go and fill.
Brilliant. I know part of that last answer was centered around the importance of patience, but with that said, looking forwards, you know, what does success look like for Vula in, say, 2, 3, 5 years' time?
Yeah, so I mean, what's exciting for us is that we had a really a beautiful breakthrough, I think, in terms of our insights last quarter, which is that if we want to help African SMEs and startups be able to apply and find their right financing opportunities, we also have to help the financiers have the infrastructure and internal tooling they need to handle the greater volume of applications that will be coming their way. And so for us, we kind of finally found the steps that are going to take us from being a small startup now that is growing fast to really becoming that huge marketplace, that premier marketplace for any company in Africa to find its financing. And so, the next steps that it takes for us to do that is we're engaging with a number of financial institutions, kind of banks, specialist lenders, and development financiers to be able to really change their internal systems to be way more efficient, way more cost effective, way more timely. And if we're able to do that as our first step, we think that we're going to take down the risk and the friction on behalf of all of the entrepreneurs who want to find out about their financing opportunities. And that's going to change the game. So basically, our next steps are to get some of the influential players to adopt our technology, bring them into the 21st century so that all of the entrepreneurs in the ecosystem can much more easily apply and find their financing.
Brilliant. And the final question, Nick, lastly, around, do you have any advice for, say, other founders thinking of creating something in the near future, or those that have already, recently set out on that path?
For sure. I mean, I think, our audience is based all over the world, but I'm sure primarily in the UK. But the ones who are going to listen to me are also African founders. So I'm going to address a couple. I think all over the world, entrepreneurs are vitally needed because what we represent is the ability of a human being to look at their own reality, at the reality around them, and to ask, what are the problems that I can actively solve? And I think especially those entrepreneurs who are solving problems that they themselves have faced are incredibly powerful tools for humanity, really, because there's never been a time like today where the technology that you have at your fingertips, the resources that you're able to get from the internet and really from the friends around you, have made an individual human being or a small group of human beings so powerful and be able to impact the lives of so many other people. I think particularly when I'm thinking about African entrepreneurs, we've got this idea that we're waiting for financing to get started with our ideas. And the reality is that really should only be a second step. A lot of the time we're waiting for investors to tell us that an idea is worth something, when really the focus should be on the customers. Who is willing to pay? And sometimes that sounds a little bit like, how can I say, insensitive or a little bit too direct, who is willing to pay? But it's not so capitalistic. It's actually more about who is this problem really going to solve a valuable, create a valuable solution for. And I think that if you're able to answer that question and build something for that person, that's an incredible service. If you're able to do that in a scalable way, then your solution can really impact the lives of thousands, hundreds of thousands, sometimes even millions of people. And I think that's the spark. It's never been more possible than it is today to do that. So don't give up, keep trying, but also, engage with support systems. You need friends, you need family, you need people to keep you sane, because whatever success looks like, it's definitely not monetary, and it's definitely not in terms of your social capital. Success a lot of the time looks like a fulfilled purpose. And so you need to be clear on what that purpose is and what you're driving towards. Otherwise, you're always at risk of losing yourself as an entrepreneur.
Brilliant. Well, I really appreciate your time once again, Nick, and the insight that you've been able to bring as well. Wishing you the best of luck with the continued business. Hope things keep going well for Vula, and hope to speak to you again soon.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.